In the quiet village of Omigbo, nestled between vast cashew plantations and rustling bamboo forests, a peculiar superstition thrived, a belief passed down through generations like sacred heirlooms. Do not sweep at night, the elders warned. If you do, you'll sweep away your fortune, or worse, awaken something you cannot put back to sleep. To outsiders, it was a strange, harmless myth. But to the villagers, especially the elderly, it was law. Chinaza, a curious 18-year-old girl with fire in her eyes and questions on her tongue, never truly believed in the village taboos. She had just completed her secondary school and spent most of her days helping her mother in their roadside shop and caring for her younger brother, Abuka, a boy of 9 who barely spoke since their father died. One humid Friday evening, the village square was unusually crowded. A traveling drama troupe had set up a wooden screen and was projecting short video stories using a rechargeable laptop and a generator. They called it Ihu Anyanwu Cinema, sunset screenings. People came with their mats and bowls of boiled ground nuts, eager for the evening escape. That night, the group showed a short video titled, "You Will Never Sweep Again at Night After Watching This Video." The story, told in haunting Igbo narration with subtitles, portrayed a woman who swept her compound late at night. She disappeared by dawn. Days later, her voice was heard in the wind, calling out the names of children. Chickens stopped laying eggs. Palm trees bled white instead of red. The villagers watched in rapt silence. Some crossed themselves, others spat thrice. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. But Chinaza scoffed. "It's just acting. This is why we don't develop. These silly stories keep people afraid of shadows." Her friend Uchechi nudged her. "Shh, don't mock the spirits. These actors may be pretending, but the origin of that story is real. It happened in Obalo. My aunt's neighbor's cousin was there." Shinaza rolled her eyes and laughed. "I'll sweep tonight and prove to all of you that nothing will happen." That laughter, carried on the humid wind, floated past an old Iroko tree at the edge of the village. A tree no one had dared cut or touch. Some said a priestess once hanged herself there. Others said it was a gateway. What no one noticed that night was the figure in the shadows beneath the tree, barefoot, hunched, and watching Chinaza with glimmering red eyes. Back home, as her mother and Abuka slept, Chinaza lit a kerosene lamp and began sweeping the compound around 10:37 p.m. She whistled to herself, dust rising in little clouds. She swept with abandon, almost defiantly, muttering, "Sweep away the lies, sweep away the fear." As she dragged the broom toward the back of the compound, the wind suddenly died. The night sounds, frogs, crickets, distant drumming, went eerily silent. Then she heard it, a soft giggle. Turning sharply, she saw nothing. "Uchechi, is that you?" she called, trying to sound amused, though her voice trembled. She swept again, faster now. Another giggle, then a voice, raspy, like wind over broken glass, whispered near her ear, though no one was there. "You called us. We heard." Chinaza dropped the broom and ran inside, bolting the door and sliding under her mat like a child. Her heart beat like a calabash drum. She told herself it was her imagination, the heat, or a prank. But just before sleep took her, Abuka turned to her in the dark and whispered, "Sister, why did you wake them?" Morning came too slowly for Chinaza. The rooster crowed, the goats bleated, and the village stirred to life, but she remained stiff beneath her mat, wide-eyed and restless. Her mother, Mama Ejime, was already up pounding yam in the backyard. The rhythmic sound of pestle against mortar should have been comforting, but Chinaza felt unsettled. She hadn't told anyone what she'd experienced. It felt ridiculous in the harsh daylight. Maybe it had all been a dream, an overreaction to the video, or Uchechi's creepy stories. But then there was Abuka. The boy sat under the mango tree that morning, knees to his chest, humming a tune he hadn't sung in years. A tune their late father used to hum when carving wood under the shade. And that wasn't what scared Chinaza the most. What scared her was the drawing. On the dusty ground before him, Abuka had used a stick to sketch a crude figure. A woman with no face, long fingers, and a wide, crooked mouth. Surrounding her were little brooms and what looked like bones. "Who is that?" Chinaza asked carefully. Abuka didn't lift his head. "She came last night. Her feet didn't touch the ground. She smelled like burnt cassava, and her mouth was full of sand." Chinaza's heart thundered. "Stop it, Abuka! You're just imagining things." "No," he whispered. "You swept and called her. You shouldn't have." His voice dropped to a whisper. "She lives under the Iroko tree. She's angry now. She knows your name." Chinaza grabbed him by the shoulders, her fear turning to anger. Did Uchechi put you up to this? Did she bribe you with sweets? Ebuka looked her in the eye, and for the first time in 2 years, his eyes were blazing, not with fear or trauma, but with knowing. You should ask Mama what happened to Auntie Obim. Ask her why we don't talk about her. Chinaza staggered back. She had always thought Auntie Obim, their mother's younger sister, had died of malaria years ago. Mama never spoke of her. She had a picture in her Bible once, but it vanished. Chinaza remembered asking once and being told to go and wash plates. That night, she couldn't sleep again. Not because she was scared, but because she needed answers. Real answers. So she waited until Mama Ejime was drying pepper in the sun and said, "Mama, I need to ask you about something strange." Her mother didn't look up. "It's about sweeping at night." And Auntie Obim, the wooden tray, and Mama's hand slipped and scattered pepper across the compound. "Where did you hear that name?" she asked, voice shaking. "Ebuka, he said I should ask. He said, you know why people say not to sweep at night." Mama Ejime sat slowly on a stool and sighed deeply, eyes watery. Then she whispered, as though afraid someone might hear, "Obim was my sister, bright and stubborn, just like you. One night, she swept the compound late. After laughing at an old woman's warning, she disappeared 3 nights later. Her slippers were found facing backward near the Iroko tree. The elders said she had crossed into something no one can return from." Chinaza's mouth went dry. "But how? What is it?" Mama's voice trembled. "They call her Oji Uzo, the night sweeper. She was once a woman like us centuries ago. Cursed by a jealous rival and forced to wander the spirit world. She feeds on defiance. When a woman sweeps at night, she believes it's her calling card, her permission." She grabbed Chinaza's wrist. "Tell me you didn't sweep, Chinaza. Tell me you didn't break the rule." Chinaza couldn't lie. Her silence said everything. Mama stood up, tears in her eyes. "Then we must go and see Enze Okonkwo tonight, the last elder who knows how to protect against Oji Uzo's wrath. But we must go before the 3rd night. That's when she comes to collect." Chinaza blinked. "Collect what?" Mama's voice cracked. "Your spirit, or your blood." By sunset, the sky was smeared with streaks of orange and crimson, as if the heavens themselves had been cut open. It was the 2nd night since Chinaza had swept. She clutched Abuka's hand tightly as they followed Mama Ejime through a narrow footpath leading to the edge of the village. There, hidden behind banana groves and cola nut trees, stood an ancient hut with a cracked thatched roof and cowries hanging at its entrance. A faint smell of burnt herbs floated through the air. The home belonged to Enze Okonkwo, the oldest surviving custodian of Umwigbo's secrets. He was over 100 years old, his eyes pale but sharp, his voice soft but commanding. He was feared and respected and very rarely seen outside sacred ceremonies. Mama knelt at the entrance and clapped her hands 3 times. "Nza, my daughter has disturbed the night." The flap of the hut opened slowly. "Let her enter alone," Onzi said, his voice like dry leaves brushing stone. Chinaza trembled but obeyed. Inside, the air was thick with smoke from smoldering charcoal. Strange masks lined the mud walls. The floor was covered in red clay and chalk markings. In the center sat Nze Okonkwo, his legs crossed, a tortoise shell before him, and a gnarled broom beside it, one that looked old and stained, almost as if it had bled. "You swept at night," Enzi said without preamble. "You called Oji Uzo." Chinaza sat, knees buckling. "I didn't mean to. I thought it was just a story." Enzi chuckled bitterly. "Stories are memories that refuse to die. And this one has fangs." He picked up a black feather and held it over the tortoise shell. "Tell me, did you feel a chill before the giggle?" Chinaza's lips trembled. "Yes." "Did she speak to you?" "Oh," she whispered. "She said, 'You called us. We heard.'" And Z frowned. "Us?" "Yes, us," Chinaza repeated. He grunted. "Then it's worse than I feared. Oji Uzo is not alone. She has begun awakening the Akuko Nso, the forbidden." Whispers. Inz rose shakily, took the broom, and dipped its tip in a dark bowl filled with what looked like thick palm oil, or blood. "This is the broom she uses," he said, "not to clean, but to mark. The place you swept has likely been stained." We must go there. Before midnight. Chinaza nodded, heart racing. That night, they returned to the compound. Enzi carried his broom, a goatskin pouch, and an old lantern. Abuka and Mama stood by the doorway, clutching rosaries and a calabash of blessed water. Enzi poured ash on the ground where Chinaza had swept. Then he murmured a chant and sprinkled white chalk in a spiral. Suddenly the ground began to tremble, and a gust of wind whooshed from nowhere, extinguishing the lantern. "Do not move," Nzi barked. "She is watching." Then from the far corner of the compound, a broom, the very one Chinaza had used, rose slowly from the earth. Floating, turning, dripping, Chinaza screamed. The broom jerked toward her like a spear. Enzi threw a fistful of ash into the air and shouted, "Ulo ogu, oji uzo, ga azu." The broom dropped. Silence returned, but only for a moment. From behind the Iroko tree, a laughter broke the stillness. High-pitched, female, close, too close. 3 nights to choose, blood, silence, or exchange. The voice hissed, then faded. Ziokonkwo looked at Chinaza gravely. "She has given you a choice." "What does it mean?" Chinaza gasped. "It means she does not want your life yet. But someone must take your place before the 3rd night ends, or she will come to claim more than you." Mama Ejime collapsed to the ground, wailing, "Not again! Not my daughter!" And Abuka stepped forward, eyes eerily calm. "Then give me instead." "No!" Chinaza screamed, her voice cracking like a clay pot dropped on stone. The words that had just slipped from Abuka's lips sent a chill through every soul present. His small body stood firm beneath the eerie moonlight, eyes clear, face devoid of fear. "Give me instead," he repeated. Mama Ejime wailed again and pulled him into her arms. "Have you gone mad, my son? You don't understand what you're saying." But Nze Okonkwo's face was solemn. "He understands," the elder said. "Ojiuzo often speaks through children. They see clearer, hear louder." Chinaza fell to her knees, her voice hoarse. "Ebuka, you can't do this for me. You're just a boy." Ebuka looked at her with strange serenity. "I'm already broken, sister. Maybe I was always meant to be the one." Nze Okonkwo sighed. "There is still time before the 3rd night ends. The exchange doesn't have to be a life. It can be something precious. But it must be equal in pain." Chinaza blinked, confused. "Equal in pain?" "Yes," the elder said, turning to face the silent Iroko tree. "You may offer her something so valuable that it equals the pain of her curse. But beware, Ojiuzo is old, ancient. Her idea of value is twisted. It must be something you can never get back." A thick, unnatural mist began to roll through the compound, swirling around their feet. A low moaning sound, like hundreds of whispering voices, rose from the earth. Then the voice returned. "Choose before the 3rd night fades, or you'll both be mine." Suddenly, Chinaza was inside. A vision. She stood in the middle of a forest soaked in red mist. Before her, a tall woman floated inches above the ground, draped in black with long, brittle fingers and a broom made of human hair. Ojiuzo, her mouth was stitched, but the voice echoed from her. "You mocked my warning, you swept with pride. Now you must pay. Choose your brother, your voice, or your womb." Chinaza gasped. "My womb?" "Yes, you shall never carry a child again, or give me the boy, or remain mute forever. Choose." Then she vanished, and Chinaza woke with a jolt back in the compound. Nze Okonkwo touched her shoulder. "You saw her, didn't you?" Chinaza nodded slowly. "She gave me a choice." The elder's face turned pale. "She hasn't offered options in decades. That means she sees you as a vessel, a threat, or a kindred." Chinaza turned to her mother, who was still holding Ibuka close. "Mama, if I choose to lose my womb, will I still live?" "Yes," Enzi said gravely, "but you will never bear. Children, your line ends with you. That is the price." Chinaza's eyes welled up with tears. "But if I don't choose by the 3rd night, she'll take Ibuka." Enzi nodded. Chinaza stumbled to her feet, walked to the middle of the compound, and looked up at the moon. Then let her take my womb. A thunderclap shook the ground. A violent wind swept through the compound and a swirl of sand rose around her. She screamed as searing pain racked her lower belly. Like hot coals were burning through her womb. She collapsed, writhing, and then silence. Abuka rushed to her. Chinaza! Her body was cold but alive. Her eyes opened. She was breathing. From the shadows, the voice whispered one last time, "The debt is paid." The door closes for now. The mist vanished. The air cleared. Nziokonko placed his palm on Chinaza's forehead. She chose life, but at a heavy price. Chinaza woke 3 days later, weak and feverish. Her body had survived the curse, but she was not the same girl who swept under the moonlight that night. The village had already begun whispering. She gave her womb to save her brother. They said in hushed tones, "She's cursed now. She belongs to the night." Even the women at the market no longer met her eyes. Children pointed at her from behind their mother's wrappers. She had become a tale herself, a warning with 2 legs and no children. Mama Ejime tried to shield her, but Chinaza knew a woman who cannot bear life in Umwigbo is seen as less than whole. Only Abuka stayed close, never leaving her side. Every morning he brought her water, and every night he sat beside her bed, humming their father's tune. "I would have gone, you know," he said one night, his voice still that of a boy but bearing the weight of an old soul. "I know," Chinaza replied, her voice hollow. But something else began happening in the village. Every evening after sunset, a strange drumming echoed from the forest. Soft at first, then louder. Women claimed they saw a shadowy figure sweeping their compounds when they were not looking. Men reported hearing laughter outside their windows. Familiar, but impossible. And then the disappearances began. First, it was Mama Anuli, a widow who had once accused Chinaza of being barren by choice. Her compound was found swept clean, her sandals placed neatly at the foot of the Iroko tree. Then came Okeke, the palm wine tapper, who often mocked the tales of Oji Uzo and claimed no broom could scare a man. He vanished without a trace, except for a broom jammed into his door with blood-soaked bristles. The village grew restless. The council of elders summoned Nze Okonkwo and demanded an explanation. They believed Chinaza had somehow provoked the spirit permanently. She brought her here, they accused. She made a deal, and now Oji Uzo walks freely again. Nze stood, ancient and steady, and faced them. "You fools," he said. "You abandoned the old ways, laughed at the warnings, and mocked your own ancestors. Chinaza did what none of you dared. She paid a bloodless price. But the curse of Oji Uzo was never just about one girl. It's been waiting, watching. What do we do now?" the youngest elder asked, trembling. Nze replied, "We must seal the gate that Chinaza's sweeping reopened, but only she can do it, because she bears the wound of sacrifice." That night, the entire village gathered under the Iroko tree. The compound where Chinaza had swept was ringed with chalk, palm fronds, and broken calabashes. A sacred circle was formed, and in the center stood Chinaza, wearing a white wrapper, her hair uncombed, holding a black broom Nze had carved from an Iroko branch and goat's bone. "Are you ready?" Nze asked her. "No," she whispered. "But I will do it anyway." He gave her a small gourd filled with ashes. "Walk the circle, sweep it once with your left hand, then again with your right, then pour the ashes at the foot of the tree." She began to walk. The air thickened. The leaves trembled though the wind was still. The drumming returned, not from human hands, but from inside the ground. On her second sweep, the ground split open slightly before the tree. A red glow seeped from within. Then she heard it again. "You returned what you owed, but others owe." Still, the face of Mama Anuli flashed in the glow. Blank-eyed and silent, Okeki's laughter echoed, twisted and wrong. Chinaza fell to her knees. "Why are they here? They never swept," Nze called out from the circle. "Oji Uzo feeds on more than brooms. She feeds on pride, mockery, defiance." All who scorned the warning became marked. Chinaza wept as she poured the ashes. A flash of light burst from the hole. The drumming stopped. The crack sealed. Silence returned. She slumped forward, the broom still in her hand. The people held their breath until Nze stepped forward, knelt beside her, and said, "It is done. The gate is closed." Cheers erupted from some. Tears flowed from others, but Chinaza didn't smile, because in that silence, she still heard a whisper. In the weeks that followed the sealing of the gate, Umigbo gradually returned to normal, or so it appeared. The market reopened, laughter returned to compounds, drums beat again during moonlight dances. Chinaza was no longer openly mocked, but neither was she embraced. She became something of a living taboo, respected, feared, but rarely. Greeted, some called her Nwanyi Nunso, the sacred woman. Others whispered she carries a spirit's shadow, but Abuka remained by her side, and Mama Ejime, now grayer and thinner, watched her daughter with both pride and sorrow. Then one cool Harmattan morning, Chinaza awoke with a start. The breeze had pushed open the window shutters, and beneath her wooden bed she saw it. A broom, not the one Enzi had carved, not the one from the ritual. This one was smaller, rougher, old, its bristles twisted and blackened, and the rope binding it was made from strands of human hair. She froze. Her heart thundered. Had someone placed it there? Or had it returned? She reached out slowly, only for a voice to whisper from within her. Sweep once more. Just once. Let me free again. Chinaza recoiled and fell back onto her mat. The voice was no longer external. It lived inside her. Ever since she sealed the gate, something had taken root. Not Oji Uzo herself, but a fragment, a whisper left behind. She wrapped the broom in a cloth and ran to Enzi Okonkwo's compound, but she found his hut empty. Villagers said he had left before dawn. Some claimed he was taken by the forest. Others whispered he had completed his cycle, that once the curse was sealed, his time on Earth was done. Panicked, Chinaza returned home. That night, her dreams were filled with ash. With sweeping, with women, hundreds of women marching in a spiral, their feet bloodied, each holding a broom, each with mouths sewn shut. And at the center, a child, her own face, but aged, eyes glowing red. She awoke screaming. Mama Ejime came running. What is it? What did you see? Chinaza shook, drenched in sweat. I saw a child. My child, but I have no womb. Mama sat slowly, holding her close. Spirits. Lie, daughter. They play on your deepest pains. But deep down, Chinaza wasn't sure it was a lie, because she began noticing other changes. When she walked past dry leaves, they brushed themselves into neat piles. When she stared too long at dust, it moved. She could hear things others couldn't, soft. Voices in clay pots, echoes in calabashes, old women giggling and cooking fires, and when she touched water, it trembled. One night, Abuka confronted her. You're not fully here anymore, are you? She didn't answer, because she had seen something. That morning, Mama Anuli's sandals placed at the base of the Iroko tree, again. Nzi had sealed the gate, yes. But someone or something had reopened a crack, and it was inside her. That night, Chinaza made a decision. She would return to the forest where it all began. She packed dried fish, a water gourd, chalk, and the cursed broom. She tied her wrapper firmly, kissed her mother goodbye, and hugged Abuka tight. If I don't return, she said, you must promise me something. No, don't say that. Promise me, you'll never sweep at night, and you'll never let anyone else do it. Not even in Lagos or overseas. The curse listens from anywhere. Understand? Abuka nodded slowly, tears rising. Chinaza turned and walked into the forest alone. No songs were sung that night. No drums were played, because everyone knew she was going to finish what no one else could. But no one, not even Chinaza, was ready for what waited beneath the roots of the Iroko. The night sky over Umwigbo was dark and brooding, with no stars, no moon, only the hum of the wind as Chinaza stepped into the forbidden forest. The leaves didn't crunch beneath her feet. They parted, whispering among themselves. Branches curled away from her like they recognized their kin. She had become something else. Her grip on the cursed broom tightened as she approached the ancient Iroko tree, its wide trunk veined with cracks that pulsed like breathing skin, the same place where her nightmare began. The same place where Oji Uzo first awakened. She stood before it. A low, ancient laughter echoed from beneath the roots. You returned, the voice hissed. Even after I tasted your pain, you came back empty and yet full. Chinaza dropped the broom at the tree's base. I came to finish it. The ground trembled. Suddenly, the earth split open before the tree, just a narrow mouth, and from it emerged the ghostly figures of the damned. Mama Anuli, Okiki, a little girl clutching a doll, and countless others with hollow eyes and silent lips. Their feet never touched the ground, floating just above the roots. They circled her slowly. Then Oji Uzo stepped forward, or rather her spirit did, dressed in a long tattered wrapper made of shadows and voices, carrying her broom like a staff of bones. You took the child from your own womb, she said. You silenced your future, yet you still sweep between worlds. Chinaza stood firm. No, that was your price, but you left something inside me. Oji Uzo's mouth, stitched and cracked, curved in a grotesque smile. A seed. A whisper. That is how we survive. Through wounds willingly opened, Chinaza pointed at the spectral crowd behind her. Release them, you have no right to their souls. They swept away the truth. They mocked the old ways. They earned their place. Chinaza stepped forward. Then take me and release them all. The spirits murmured. Oji Uzo's smile faded. You offer your soul freely? No, Chinaza said. She reached into her wrapper and pulled out a second broom, one wrapped in white cloth and ash. The cleansing broom of Enzeo Konkwo. I offer war. Without warning, she struck the ground with the sacred broom. A blinding light erupted from the soil, and the air exploded in sound. Not drumming, but singing. Old Igbo hymns. Songs once sung by women during moonlight cleansing rituals. Forgotten. Tunes of warning and wisdom. The ghost began to blink. Awaken. Remember. Oji Uzo screamed, the sound curdling the trees and shaking the skies. Her body unraveled like smoke, but her voice clawed at Chinaza's ears. You will never silence me. As long as brooms sweep at night, I will rise. Chinaza chanted as the elders once did. She swept the sacred circle one last time, clockwise, then anti-clockwise. The light surged. The gate began to seal permanently. The ghosts, now weeping, whispered thank yous as they vanished into peaceful mist, their bonds broken, and Oji Uzo's shadow, her twisted curse, was sucked back into the crack beneath the Iroko tree, which, sealed shut with a thunderclap. All was still. Chinaza collapsed. 3 days later, she woke in her family compound. Ebuka by her side, Mama Ejime clutching her hands. Her eyes fluttered open. Am I alive? Ebuka laughed through his tears. You didn't just survive, you saved everyone. The village rejoiced. The curse was gone. Forever, they rebuilt. The shrine of Oji Uzo, not in fear, but in respect. The tales were no longer whispered, but taught in songs and festivals. Children learned not just the story, but its warning. And Chinaza, she never swept again. Not at night, not even in the afternoon. She became a revered guardian, teaching others how to listen, how to honor, how not to forget. She never married, never bore children, but she was called Mother of Spirits, the woman who swept away death and brought truth back to the land. So the next time your hand reaches for a broom under a dark sky, remember Chinaza, and remember Oji Uzo still listens. You may never sweep again at night, not out of fear, but because you finally understand why.